What's up everyone, Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and we're going to do some underrated albums again. And this time, we're going to get into some doom metal. I figure it's about time to actually really talk about some more doom stuff. I've kind of done the stoner stuff, and of course back to death metal, which I included probably some death doom in there. But let's just get down to some raw, nasty doom, and I found 10 albums here that I think are underrated or underappreciated. Some of them by more well-known acts, and others by definitely a lot more obscure acts. So let's just get right into this. Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. This came out in 2013 on Necrotic Recordings, which is pretty much the reason why I bought it. I was in a record store, I saw the little Necrotic emblem, and I was like, well, I love Neurosis, so I'm gonna take a chance on these guys. And this is a really cool meeting point between doom metal and sludge metal for the most part. They definitely have a lot of the post-metal atmosphere in terms of like Neurosis. It is very similar to Neurosis in spots, but this is mainly doom riffs. Great atmosphere in here. I like these slow builds on a lot of these songs. There's even some sort of Pink Floyd-ish moments on here. The songs I Am and Unnamed especially, these songs really take a while to get going and they keep building the tension. So pretty much imagine like Neurosis and Sleep sort of blended together and you'll get something pretty close to this. The vocals in here are particularly interesting, especially as far as they go. Like you have moans and groans and howls and growls, and I realized those both rhymed. That was not intentional, but it's really interesting how they capture different moods with all these vocals on here. Now, I'm not entirely sure if this band is still around. I think they were listed as unknown when I looked up their profile, but I would love to hear more from them because I thought this was an absolutely killer release and just a fun one that I took a gamble on. So I strongly recommend checking this one out. It was a lot of fun. Good, slow, doomy fun. Check it out. Teeth of the Hydra, Greenland. This is this band's second album, came out on TP Records in 2006, and this band is from my home state. They're from Columbus, Ohio. And unfortunately, they broke up not too long after this album. I'm not entirely sure when because it was kind of hard to find information on this, but I found this, I think, courtesy of seeing a review on it, and it was pretty favorable, so I checked it out, and this is straight up sludgy doom metal. Big chunky tone in terms of the guitars, very reminiscent of Cathedral, but sort of blend that with like High on Fire. And I gotta say the vocals are a little Lee Dorian-ish. There's even some sort of Melvins like sludge nods, especially in the song The Garden of Rotten Teeth, which is pretty absurdly metal title. I do like the fact that there were some nice up-tempo sort of like Sabbath-y moments on here where it kind of gets like a nice groove going, good headbanger type moments. And of course tons of riffs because you need big riffs in doom metal and these guys definitely bring it. Definitely worth checking out. I have not checked out their first album, so I don't know if it is different than this one in any way, but I know this one's pretty damn good, and I mean for a while I bought stuff on TP Records just because that label put out a lot of quality stuff. So if you're looking for some stoner doom, sludge, it's pretty much still doom is the heart of it. Definitely check this out. It's a pretty solid album. Moonless, Calling All Demons. This is their only album, came out in 2011 on Dementia Records, and this was a straight up doom metal band with a lot of classic leanings from Denmark. These guys love themselves like St. Vitus and Black Sabbath. It's very centered on that. A little bit of desert rock in there, especially with the vocals. The vocals remind me a lot of John Garcia from Caius. Maybe just in a little bit lower register, but still has that sort of gruffness to the voice, but he's still very tuneful in terms of just his delivery. The thing I like about this one is it is very hook laden. It has a lot of that kind of classic rock feel, but with a very straightforward doom metal production. It sounds heavier and chunky, but the riffs definitely scream like more classic influences on here. Loads of catchy harmonies, bluesy riffs. It's a shame this is the only album from these guys because I really enjoyed this. They were only around from 2009 to 2014, and I can't really find out what all these other members did, or at least as much as I could find on Encyclopedia Metallum. I just think maybe they didn't join a lot of metal bands per se, so they didn't really cover them. I don't know. Either way, this is an awesome one-off album. I don't know if it would be worthy of a retro review on its own, but it's really good, and I strongly recommend checking it out if you're looking for some more classic doom sound. Good stuff. The Foreshadowing Oionos. I think that's how you say that word. This is their second album, came out in 2010, originally released on Cyclone Empire, but re-released by Metal Blade. This is an Italian gothic doom band. It's very much in that realm of like Moonspell, Paradise Lost. Lots of like depressing gothic qualities, crooned vocals. He's kind of got a nice low baritone voice. Partially really reminds me of Matt Barlow from Iced Earth, or formerly of Iced Earth. This entire album is glum, melancholy, loaded with tons of those depressing guitar harmonies that just sound like the guitar is weeping. And then pair that with a lot of lush keys that also sound very depressing. It's all about that gothic, glum atmosphere. They even squeeze in a Sting cover, Russians, which is very folky. And the thing I like about the vocals, especially on this, is they're all very like low and just downtrodden. There's no point where everything sounds like soaring or really epic. And if it does, it still brings it right back down to that really glum point, so it keeps with that depressive atmosphere throughout. I mean, if it's gothic, it's gotta be glum. That's pretty much the rules, I think. This is the only release I have by this band. I need to get more. I remember absolutely loving this when I got it, and then jamming again and was like, yeah, this is absolutely killer. Why the hell don't I have more by them? So yeah, I need to get some more, and you should definitely get some because this is really killer stuff. So definitely check these guys out. Premonition XIII, self-titled. This is the lone studio release from this wino-fronted band. Came out in 2011 and they broke up, I believe, the next year in 2012 due to personal reasons. In fact, I even had a quote. Apparently Wino said, Premonition XIII was all groovy until people got weird. So that's over. I don't know what happened. I don't know who got weird, but unfortunately this band is no longer around. This is pretty much exactly what you'd expect from Wino. He got together with some old buddies and they just did a flat out sort of stoner doom project. Very trippy desert rock spots, lots of like psychedelic guitars and such. Wino sounds great on this album. He actually kind of reminds me a little bit of Dusty from ZZ Top in a lot of spots where he's just crooning his ass off. I love the mix of stoner riffs and then that gloomy atmosphere. This definitely leans more towards doom metal. I do love this album, except I have to say Modern Man is a little too close to Sabra Cadabra. The rhythm to that, the melody, a lot of that just seems so close to the source material. If that was the source material, it really sounds like it was the source material. But this is a killer release. It's a shame it's only a one-off, but I mean, Wino has like 8 different projects he puts out music on, so I guess we can tolerate not having this one. Either way, definitely check this out. It's a really killer one-off. Foehammer. This is their self-titled EP from 2015, released on Grimoire Records. And I got this in the Metalhead box, God, maybe a couple of years ago now. And this is a solid, sludgy doom metal EP. 3 tracks. They are long as hell, they are heavy as hell. In fact, as soon as you hear the guitar and bass tone come in, it's a tone that would make bands like Monolord blush. This entire album is drenched in fuzz and murk, but it works. Very slow plodding songs. The vocals are actually all harsh, which I was kind of surprised by. But it's weird that they're all like very death metal sort of growls, or very low and kind of gurgly. But this doesn't scream death doom at all. In fact, none of the riffs on here really scream death metal at all. This all screams doom metal and sludge, which is really interesting because most of the time, as soon as I hear like the death metal vocals on there, I instantly think death doom, but it really just didn't fit. Now this band put out a full length, which unfortunately I didn't pick up. I think it came out last year. Might have come out this year. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that came out. But I believe the only original member is the bassist and frontman on here, but this band is still continuing on, and I plan on actually finding their full length because I really enjoyed this EP. So if you're looking for something slow, sludgy, ugly, all that, definitely check this out. It's a pretty badass listen. Pilgrim, Misery Wizard. This is their debut, came out in 2012 on Metal Blade Records, and this, unfortunately, and the follow-up are the only albums by them because their frontman sadly passed away in 2017, and he is a huge part of the sound. He was also their guitarist, and my God, the guitar tone is just so damn heavy. It's fuzzy, but it has a good crunch to it. The bass sounds massive. Everything about this album just sounds huge. The giant, gloomy riffs with big, epic harmonies. Everything about this just screams depressing, but beautiful at the same time. The production on here is absolutely amazing. It's very similar to Paul Bearer, but it has less proggy notes. It's more about just the straightforward doom metal sound. Some killer up-tempo moments where they actually break into some really cool harmonies, but I have to say the last track, Forsaken Man, with the creepy, like almost Latin chants. It doesn't sound like they're doing Latin, but they might be. I don't know. Either way, the atmosphere on it is creepier than hell. It really just labors the point that this is doom as hell. Now, the follow-up to this is really good, too. I unfortunately don't see this band ever reuniting just because such a central figure to the band passed on, and that's, you know, super sad, and I don't know if continuing on would necessarily be the thing, or just continue on in different projects maybe, but sort of keep this sound, because the sound is so good on this. So if you're looking for some absolutely killer doom, it is just depressing as hell, but beautiful. Check this album out. It's absolutely monstrous. Demon Lung, the 100th Name. This is their debut album, came out in 2013 on Candlelight Records, and this is straight up sludgy doom metal from Las Vegas, I believe. Very, very sludgy guitars. They absolutely crackle on this album, and this is a doom metal album that actually kind of feels evil. I love the frontwoman's voice on here. She has this lower register, and she's got a little bit of rasp for her voice, so she sounds extra depressed and bummed out, which just works with the atmosphere. I gotta say, the song Devil's Wind sounds like a fierce nod to Electric Funeral. It has that sort of wah-drenched opening that, I mean, if you've heard the song Electric Funeral, you know what that sounds like. It's pretty damn close. And of course, if you're gonna go with big, heavy Sabbath riffs, throw in a Hammond organ, which they do, and instantly it sounds even creepier in spots. Now, despite the all-clean vocals on here, there are some sections on here that, at least song-wise, in terms of the structure, in terms of the overall sound of it, it kind of gets close to death doom. Like, it gets very chuggy, but it's a death metal chug. Like, you can actually hear a little bit of death metal in it. But the vocals never get harsh. I don't think there's a single growl on here. So this band brings some interesting stuff to the table. They have a follow-up to this, which I did like, called a Dracula, I believe, just a single Dracula. But either this or the follow-up are absolutely great. It has just, again, that sort of evil feel, a little bit of that sultry bluesiness with the Hammond organ thrown in there. Awesome album. Definitely worth checking out. Check out their other album too. But yeah, Demon Lung. Awesome stuff. Mount Salem, Endless. This was originally independently released in 2013, then re-released by Metal Blade in 2014, which is the version I have. Now, this is listed as an EP, and it shouldn't be. It's 8 tracks, and it's actually pretty long, so that kind of screams full length. This is a Chicago-based doom metal act, female-fronted, and she also plays keys on this, so you get lots of cool Hammond organ stuff on here. But this is kind of on that border between doom metal and sort of that retro rock that's like very like Graveyard or Rival Sons. It has sort of that feel, like, hey, we're kind of playing a lot of like Led Zeppelin stuff, except these guys kind of lean more on Deep Purple and Black Sabbath. But it's actually pretty damn heavy, and the frontwoman has fantastic vocals. Now, her vocals are very different than the ones that are on Demon Lung, not just because they're different people. The frontwoman on here has a higher range, or at least a more flexible range. She doesn't really get super low, but she has like fantastic, very epic, very tuneful vocals. She really doesn't sound very gritty. She sounds very clean on here, and the music is very melody driven, but it still has that doomy atmosphere to it. I mean, overall, the sound on here, I was listening to it and instantly I started thinking of like Chicago-based bands, namely Trouble, just because I think there's a lot of that in there, except, again, a little bit more towards like 70s rock and sort of a retro feel. This is, again, the only release they have, and their status is kind of unknown. There really has not been any news as to whether or not they broke up or are on a hiatus, at least as far as I've seen. It's just they haven't put out anything since 2013, or technically 2014 when this was reissued. Either way, I'd like to hear more by them because this is a really, really good album, and it is fiercely melody driven, which I really dug about this. If you haven't heard of these guys, check them out. Hopefully they resurface with more stuff, but this is a solid one-off right here. And finally we have Electric Wizard, their self-titled debut from 1995. Now, I put this one on here because I see a lot of people either flat out just shit on this album, which I don't understand, or just sort of ignore it in favor of their, following albums. Let Us Pray and Dope Throne. Those are great albums. But I love this album. This is definitely a more straightforward Doom album. It feels a lot more like, worshiping bands like Candlemass and Cathedral, and less about their weird fuzzy atmosphere, which I like. Sometimes it can be a bit much because it seems like everything's got a crackle and hiss. This, it sounds remarkably clean but still gritty. Great riffs on here. The song Behemoth alone is absolutely just flat out worth getting this entire album for. It might not stand out in their discography because it might sound the most normal out of all of theirs, and it sounds decidedly different than most of their releases. Namely the production, but also the atmosphere is very different. This is, again, more straightforward Doom. There's more riffs to pick out. It isn't all about that suffocating, gloomy atmosphere, which Electric Wizard is fantastic at. But this is kind of like a dark horse, I guess, in their entire discography, and it's absolutely awesome. I think it needs a lot more praise because this is a killer album that got the ball rolling for these guys. So yeah, if you've never checked out Electric Wizard's debut, this is one of my favorite ones from this band, and it needs more love, at least in my opinion. So definitely check this out. Killer release, killer band. Yeah, love it. All right, well, that knocks out another one of these. Again, not sure what I'm gonna move on to. I don't know. I could stick with Doom, go back to stoner metal. I really haven't touched on prog much. I don't know. We're gonna figure it out and see which way we're gonna go, because I like doing these because there's a lot of cool underground gems out there. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We will catch you later.